The defensive stars have been out here at the NFL Scouting Combine. We're going to discuss it next on the Locked On NFL Draft podcast.
You are Locked On NFL Draft, your daily podcast covering the NFL Draft. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Back to the Locked On NFL Draft podcast, your daily podcast covering your favorite draft prospects, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I am Damian Parks, and you can find me on Twitter at DP_NFL. I'm a national scout over at the Draft Network and your favorite and local running back guru who stays on the ones and twos. And then I got the champ with me. Keith, talk to him, baby.
Man, what's up, everyone? This is Keith Sanchez, senior draft analyst at the Draft Network. And like my guy DP always says, man, 2019 national champion, yes, those LSU Tigers, greatest college football team to ever grace the gridiron, man. And you know we're here to bring you championship level talk. But guess what we're talking about, man? We're talking about the NFL Combine. It's here. We get 40 times. We get verticals. We get broad jumps. We get position drills. So DP, we talk about the good, the bad, the ugly. You know they say defense wins championships. So DP, let's go ahead and kick this thing off, man.
Keith, Thursday really started the whole thing. We were in the interviews all week. That was cool, but it was exhausting, man. We wanted to get on the field drills, tired of hearing coach speak and GM speak. Let's see these boys, these players come out here and do their thing, man. And Keith, of course, we got to start with the true star of Thursday. Well, there was a couple. I'm not going to just say, dismiss everybody else. But my dog, Nolan Smith, pun intended on the dog, Keith. Nolan Smith destroyed the combine and what he was able to do. You know, he tore his pec a couple months ago, so he's not fully healthy to do all the other drills. They said that he was only going to do just a couple things that he physically felt comfortable doing, Keith. But I lie to you not, man. 4.39 in the 40, Keith. 40, I think 41 and a half in the vert, right? Like the explosiveness, and I think I put that in my report for the Draft Network when I studied this young man. He's explosive, Keith. Like, what does this do for his draft stock?
How did it say? What's the song, man? Return of the Mac. Man. Nolan Smith return, man. Like I said, because he got hurt early on during the season, right? And it was a fairly incomplete resume, right? And we were trying to figure it out. We knew he was explosive, but how explosive, right? We knew he was talented, but how talented. We knew he was locked in, but how locked in, man. And he came in and he stole the show. And I'm not sure there will be another player that catches Nolan Smith, right, as far as dominating the NFL Combine from beginning to end. And just there was expectations, and then just to surpass those expectations by far, right? We're talking about an outside linebacker that ran a 4.3. Like, what are we doing at this point, right, man? So Nolan Smith, man, he definitely took the cake. He's definitely a combine winner. But, you know, it was more than Nolan Smith, right? When we talk about the D-line, man, we got to give credit to Tennessee edge rusher Byron Young. This is another guy, edge rusher. You can see the explosiveness on the field, right? But then he converted it into testing. And when we had our preview shows, and if you didn't listen to them, man, still go check them out. They're on YouTube. We talked about watching the film, and then now the testing is just confirmation, right? And both Nolan Smith and then now Byron Young, they confirmed that these are explosive edge players, that they can get to the quarterback because they would just flat out overwhelm offensive tackles with their speed. And you know what else we're here, DP, is because we get to do the interviews, man. We get to see these people, right? And this is something that's very important to NFL teams also. They have their personal interviews, but we get to watch these guys in front, you know, standing at the podium with a bunch of people, asking them questions. And you can tell the charismatic people. You can tell the calculated people. You can tell the nervous people. And Byron Young, for me, he checked every box from the perspective of, man, he was confident, but then he was also, I think he knows how to command and how to maneuver a room. So when you talk about handing a guy $5 million, $10 million, $20 million, I feel totally comfortable with that just by the way that Byron Young presented himself.
Okay, no, he presented himself so well, man. He handled some unnecessary questions very well that he should never have been asked. But, like, he's so well-spoken. You can tell he works hard and he grinds. And, like, that relationship that he built with another explosive pass rusher, one of my guys, Derek Hall, you saw that when they both ran the 40. They met up and you know what I'm saying, and celebrated together because they're very similar in terms of their play style. But the guy I wanted to talk about as well, Keith, you're talking about on the edge, man, 6'2", 282, almost 34 inches on the arm. I'm not going to pronounce his whole name, Keith, because I can't. I've tried. I've practiced it, so I continue to fail at it. I'm going to call him Tommy because I think that's what his nickname is, from Northwestern. I'm just not even going to waste my time with it. I don't want to butcher it, Keith, but talk about being able to go out there and test out of this world. Like I said, almost 290 pounds, Keith. And I was sitting in Lucas Oil, and he's filled out, thick build, man. And you talk about 4.49 in the 40, right? A 1.61 10-yard split, 10.5 in the broad, 37.5 on the vert. He put up 27 reps on 225, and he just came out here and like you said, if it wasn't for Nolan Smith, man, and Byron Young being as explosive, Tommy would have gotten a lot more pub, man, because he did receive a lot of pub, but like
he surprised me. I'm like, okay, I didn't know Northwestern had athletes, right? And this guy, he checked every single box. Every time it was a new trail, he was showing that I'm an elite level athlete.
Bro, and it was just like I said, the build and Northwestern. I mean, we could talk about one of the other guys later on that I want to mention, but like that was big, man. This edge group, I think it's like you said, this is confirmation, right? Keith, Derek Carr coming out here 4.55. Foskey ran a good time. Keith, Will Anderson ran a good time for himself at 4.6, right? And that's what I'm saying. So it's like just watching these guys come out here, like who's explosive on tape. You've seen the first step quickness and everything. Now to get that 10-yard split, like, oh yeah, he booking. He's moving, right? He's eating up grass and time. But also, Keith, the Lucas Van Ness. Sorry, I always call it Lucas Van Ness. One of the bigger winners, right? He's like, what, 275? We saw him close up. Right, 4.58, Keith. A 4.58 at 270 plus. 6'5", 270 plus. Man, Keith, like you talking about checking the boxes and confirming that all the first round buzz is warranted. I think he did that.
No, I agree. And we can't complete this segment, right? Because it's time to transition, but we cannot complete this segment without mentioning Kalijah Kancey, right? Mm-hmm. Pittsburgh tackle Kalijah Kancey, man, up the ante on the comparisons to Aaron Donald, right? I'm not saying that's accurate, but it's stuck now, right? It's going to stick. It's going to be there. That guy blew the combine testing out of the waters. Like you said, more confirmation of the explosiveness, the athleticism that he has. But guess what, DP? We not only had the defensive line, right, but we got the opportunity to watch the back end of the defense, man. And, we had some pretty fast 40s by those DBs. So coming up next, we are getting into these defensive back, linebacker testings and who won the day.
Guys, listen, being here at Indianapolis, there's some long days. We're not always able to stop and have a full meal and a great breakfast. I can promise you I didn't. When we start at 6, 7 o'clock in the morning, I'm not able to get the Chick-fil-A like I'd like to. But I had my book bag, though, Built Bar, cookies and cream flavored, and it got me through until I got to lunch, man. It's a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar because it's made of 100% real chocolate. And yes, you can go to your local Sam's. You can get a big box. If you like it bulk, you can buy them in a 13-bar box. I just went for this trip to get me a nice little 4-bar box of Built Bar. Like I said, the cookies and cream variation, but there's double chocolate, coconut puff, all of that, right? So you can go to your local Walmart. You can go over to Sam's and pick it up. Or if you want, you can just use our promo code and go to BuiltBar.com, right? You go to BuiltBar.com, use our promo code LOCKEDON15. You'll get 15% off your next order. I'm telling you guys, you're going to really enjoy Built Bars. Q, you talked about it, man. Running fast 40s. The defensive line was like, listen, they set the tone. It was like, guys, we're about 50 pounds heavier than y'all, and we're still going to be in the 4.3s and 4.4s. But Keith, these DBs said, listen, man, DJ Tennessee, I will not be outdone by a defensive end with his 4.26, Keith. And that was a guy that came into this class, and I was high on him. I talked well of him, when we had our meetings and I presented him. And I believe I gave him a second-round grade. He's been in my top 40 all season, since the summer. I love this kid's game. He doesn't have the ideal arm length, I would say. And he came in a little lighter, but guys drop weight just specifically for this event to run fast, right? And I think that's all he did was run. Okay, what does that 4.26 do for his draft stock as we get closer to the actual NFL draft?
I think for us, right, it's confirmation, man. We knew this guy was smooth. We knew he was a good athlete. Oh man, for everybody that's not fully aware of DJ Turner, Michigan cornerback, man, go to the draftnetwork.com. Google DJ Turner, Damien's DP. His draft profile is up there, man. You can read all about this guy, and totally get a good understanding of who he is. Because for us, this was not, and it's not a braggadocious type thing, but this was not a guy that just jumped onto the scene with us, right? He just wasn't that popular at Michigan, but when you watch him, he was a high caliber athlete. Now, I'll be completely honest. Did I think this guy was going to come out and run a 4.26 and possibly the fastest 40 at the entire combine? No, but if anything under 4.4, I felt pretty good about it, right? Because you can see the speed, you can see the fluid hips. So now I think our listeners, right now, you're wondering, hey, do I have a starting corner? And I say yes. This is not just a track guy. This is a guy that's really fast, but he's a football player at the end of the day. And you combine the both of those, and yes, you have a corner that you trust to play on the outside because he can run vertical with some of the fastest wide receivers in the NFL. So DJ Turner was definitely a guy that for me jumped off. Right there with Nolan Smith, right? They're battling for who stole the combine over the past 2 days, man. And another guy that you want to mention is for me, South Carolina cornerback Darius Rush. Everyone knows South Carolina cornerback Smith, right? They know Christopher Smith, but now it's time to know Darius Rush. This is the guy we talked about in our Senior Bowl, conversations. He took over the Senior Bowl, man. This guy showed another guy, fluid hips. He has good size, good athleticism, really quick feet. And then we talked about the speed to carry vertical, and I'm like, I feel pretty good about it, right? When I watched it on film and I watched it at the Senior Bowl, and then he was like, Keith, let me go ahead and ease your mind on this, man. I can run for real, man. I can run for real. So he came out there, and he picked him up and put him down, and he had a hell of a performance. So Darius Rush, I felt really good about after watching him, because of that, right? And then he came and ran a 40 time, and I felt really good. And I say here, we got to mention the Maryland cornerbacks, right? Because they went back to back, and they went on and said, you know what? Because I think. And it was kind of weird, right? Like we're talking about DBs, and we started yesterday off with special teams guys, right? We're watching long snappers and kickers kick the thing off. We're trying to see, punters, and we're trying to see 4.2s and 4.3s. But credit to the Maryland cornerbacks, Jacorian Bennett and Deontay Banks, because they got that thing popping real quick, right? Jacorian Bennett ran a 4.3. Deontay Banks followed that up. They were back-to-back, and they were teammates. So they went 4.3, 4.35. And I'm not going to lie. When I seen them run those times, I started scratching my head about Maryland's record, right? I'm like, how, y'all have a 1-2 tandem. Y'all shouldn't be able to lock some stuff up, man. Nobody should be able to get past y'all. Y'all have two of the top 3 to 4 testing times in the entire combine so far. So, man, really impressive guys. So, DP, do you have anybody else that was kind of, confirmation or just conversation to talk about?
No, I was actually going to bring up, the Maryland corners as well, but I want to go and talk about, one of my guys, Emmanuel Forbes, 4.35. Bro, and then the crazy thing about it, he stumbled in the first 10 yards. He stumbled out the blocks and somehow got to an upright position to long stride himself to a 4.35. He didn't run I don't believe he ran his second 40, right? He did the field drills where he looked good. He still looked fluid enough to come out of his breaks and drive on the ball, and of course, his receiver background, being able to catch the ball with ease, right? Talking about FBS all-time leader, I believe, in pick sixes in college football history. That's no shock, right, to see him catch the ball with ease. But like just to see him, and he came in light. Everybody's on Twitter, 166. Guys, this is the combine. You come here for one reason: to test well. So it's different for Bryce Young, who wants to add weight so he can hush up some of the concerns. A guy like Emmanuel Forbes, I want to make sure I run the best time possible, right? So I'm going to come in about 10 pounds lighter than my actual playing weight and blaze the 40. But he just, to me, he solidified himself, man, as a potential late day one type of corner. And Keith, I haven't seen much of him because I know that this is one of your guys who you've talked about well. Keytrell Clark running that 4.42.
This is why we're co-hosts, baby. This is why we're co-hosts, because I was expecting you to toss it back to me And I was gonna mention Keytrell Clark, but you went on and took care of that for me, man. So Keytrell Clark, Louisville cornerback, man. Let me tell you this: the guy plays on the outside, he plays on the inside. I was really aggressive with my grade coming in, so he was one of the first probably 10 prospects I've watched in this process, and I gave him a second round grade, right? And that was probably October, and from October to now, I've heard nothing about him. So I'm sitting here, I'm like, am I the only one that likes this guy? This could be a bit of a problem, right? But Keytrell, appreciate you, baby, because you went and put yourself on the radar and let everybody know that you are a true baller. And this is not a guy that just ran a fast forward and I feel really good about. This is a football player, man. You can put this guy in the nickel. He's going to show up against the run. He can play man. He has ball skills. He's fluid, instinctual. So I feel good about this guy. Early day 2. I think he clearly supplanted himself there, and we know how important the nickel cornerback position is. But DP, we talked about the guys that tested well, but we also, real quick, I'm gonna mention, the top of the board, right? The top 2-3 corners. We're talking about Christian Gonzalez. He put down a 4.38. Yeah, Joey Porter Jr. run a 4.46, which I think some people may have slated him a little higher. I was hearing a lot of rumors of a 4.3, but I'll say this, man, and obviously communicating to our listeners and everything. Preview shows, right? We talked about confirmation. What does the testing mean, right? And the testing means, hey, Joey Porter Jr. ran a 4.46, Christian Gonzalez ran a 4.3, DJ Turner ran a 4.2. With just this testing, you shouldn't just, if you had Joey Porter Jr. above DJ Turner, I wouldn't necessarily swap him, right? A 4.46 is still plenty enough speed. Christian Gonzalez ran a smooth 4.3, like it was an effortless 4.3. You could tell that guy has a real track background just by his stride. So I think those guys performed well. They did what they needed to do. Obviously, we still have pro days coming up as far as this reward testing and rounding out this class. With DP, listen, man.
Well, hold on, Keith. I want to do one. I want to throw out to one name, right? Because the combine don't only confirm some things, but it sheds lights on guys that we didn't know about, right? And neither one of us have Northwestern in our region.
Yeah.
But Cam Mitchell, man, came out here and, bro, 5'11", 191, 31 and 3/8 on the arm, right? 4.47, a 1.48 10-yard split. He jumped 35, and he looked smooth in the field drills. He looked good, Keith. So, he has the height and build that you want for a nickel. But I can't wait to get into his film when we get back this week, because this kid might be able to play some outside corner. So just like a very one of those like gems, right? Those diamonds in the rough. He came out here, no one was really talking about him, and the medicals held him up, Keith, because he couldn't do the interview. He couldn't come to the podium because he was doing his medicals. So I think that stopped him from really having, either he didn't show up because of the medicals or he didn't have enough time. But the point is, he didn't have the chance to really set the narrative for himself in front of everybody, during the media availability. But he went out there and balled, on the field and through the testing drill. So I wanted to give some shout out to Northwestern cornerback Cam Mitchell, because again, this is about confirmation bias as well as finding those gems, those diamonds in the rough.
Agree with you 100%, man. Northwestern, they might have them, a little DBU. They might could jump in that conversation just a little
Greg
bit.
Newsom Jr. a couple years ago, baby.
They put out one probably every year, man. Just one talented cornerback every single year. But DP, listen, man. We relatively positive people, right? So we started this thing off with the positives, but now I'm not going to say negatives, but we're going to talk about the question marks, right? Who had questionable performances, and then where does that leave you now with them in regards to the film matching up with the combine performances coming up next?
So we're not going to say it's bad news, Keith, but it's more so, I didn't expect this, man. Where did this come from? You know what I mean? More so just some questions. And I want to start off, Keith, with cornerback out of Utah, Clark Phillips, who looked good on the field. The drills look good. He looked smooth out of his back pedal and his brakes. But he came in at 5'9", I believe? 5'9", 184, 29 and 1/8 on the arm. So short arms. And then he hit 33 on the vert. That's not great. And then also 4.51, where I thought he was more of a 4.4 guy, Keith. So questions is, like I said, we know how to weigh this event as evaluators. So tell the people, man, tell the family, the listeners, how would you handle this with Cam Phillips?
Yeah, man, it's Tough, right? It's tough because, like you said, he's undersized, right? First of all, he's undersized, and then the explosive numbers are not across the charts, right? It doesn't, everything doesn't lead itself to explosiveness. So I think, moving forward, and that's why we have these kind of checkpoints, right? Like the Senior Bowl was a checkpoint, the Combine is a checkpoint as far as evaluation. Now we get to see his athletic testing, and you say, you know what? Relying on the film, this guy's a good football player who is instinctual. But when he goes against elite level athletes, he may be stressed, right? So I know in my draft process and when I'm grading guys, usually rounds 1, 2, and 3, that's my starters, right? Like that's guys that I'm like, okay, this guy can start. You know what I'm saying? Like I want this guy on the field every down, right? Then when you start to get in that fourth round, that's a situation specific or a scheme specific type football player. And I think for Phillips, I think he's somewhere in between the two, right? Somewhere in that late third to early fourth. If you have a role that needs to be filled, you know what I'm saying? And you have the scheme that can work out for him. So I think he's still a good football player. Don't get me wrong. But obviously, like testing, that way and then coming in with the measurables, that's going to raise, just a couple little question marks. We're not going to call them concerns. There's a couple questions. You got to go back, dive back into it and kind of grade that out. But DP, we got to talk about a heavy hitter, man. We got to talk about a heavy hitter name, and that's Brian Branch, right? Because he came in safety one on everyone's board. I watched the film. I watched the film and I checked him out, and I thought he was closer to a second round grade than a first round grade. So I came in with a high 2, right? I 32 picks, right? And so maybe pick 40, somewhere around there. And that's because I had question marks about his speed, because you can see when he moves into the slot, which I thought was really interesting that they labeled him as a corner, right? And because I'm like, why are they doing that to him? Because that was the one spot I had a question mark about, right? When he played the nickel or when he was lined up at his deep safety, he was playing man to man, and those slot wide receivers had those two-way goals. They can make they make a move, and he was just slightly hesitant to make the move, right? To get into phase and then also catch back up with those guys. And I think those movement skills came out in that testing number. So now are you going to drop him and say, oh man, this guy can't play football? No, at the end of the day, he can still play football. But you're going to have to think about now, okay, instead of me saying I can put this guy everywhere and win and dominate in every position, it's like, okay, now I have to worry about where can't I put him, right? Where could I put him to where he can possibly lose? And that's the biggest consideration with Brian Branch. So that was one big takeaway from me. DP, what takeaway you had?
Man, and that's a really good mention with Branch. Noah Sewell, Keith, he came to the podium. He looked smaller than he did on tape, right? And there were some rumors that he was well above 250, playing linebacker for Oregon, this year. And someone asked him where he was, during the media availability, where are you going to weigh in at? And he said, oh, I'm 250. He came in a couple pounds shy. He was like 245, 246, somewhere in there. But he looked leaner, Keith. And he still ran a 4.64, almost a 4.65. And for me, it's like, man, all right, so if you're down weight and you still can't get below the 4.6s, is this a situation where are you going to play at weight-wise? And then how is that going to negatively affect your speed, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, can you be a 3-down player? Right now, Keith, I mean, he did not have the year that we expected, right? We know he's physical. He's kind of a throwback run stuffer that can hit. And he's got a little – he's shown over the years while he's at Oregon. He had some juice in the short area, right? The short area burst and quickness to locate and track the football. But Keith, I just don't know what to do with him going forward, because like I said, if he's at 246 now and runs a 4.64, but when he's playing, if he's 255, 260, are you 4.7, 4.72? And if so, I don't see how you're going to stay in the field outside of more obvious run situations in the NFL.
No, I agree with you 100%. And when you're a team and you draft him, you have to think about that, right? Because you have to think this guy is going to add weight. Like I doubt that he stays there. Like just maturing as a man, right? As his body matures, as he get older, he's going to add weight. Like just naturally, that's what's going to happen. So now, like you said, you're talking about adding 10, 15, 20 pounds. And then it's like, what does that athletic profile look like? DP, I'm going to go back to the safeties, man. And I know it's so when we're talking about the positives, we list a lot of corners. And the reason was because the safeties, There were a lot of underwhelming performances. So I'm going to rattle off a couple names, man. That tested. Brandon Joseph, safety from Notre Dame. He ran a 4.62. Rashad Torrance, safety from Florida, 4.72. Trey Dean, safety from Florida, 4.75. So that there was some very underwhelming, right, testing numbers. Christopher Smith, who we know you've heard me on this podcast talk about him. I really like him. Christopher Smith ran a safety from Georgia, ran a 4.62. So tough, man. It's tough, right? And we're not even talking about big guys, right? We're not talking about guys that's 6'2", 6'3", 200 plus pounds, man. Christopher Smith, I think, is sub 6 foot, 190 pounds and running a 4.62. I still really like him instinctually, but like I said, man, this just shows that, hey, there may be some situations that he may not show well in. So I think with this safety position, we didn't have him graded as high, right? Like this safety class overall, we thought that this was a rather weak safety class from top to bottom, especially athletically. And I think the combine numbers showed improved it.
No, yeah, no, 100%. And like I said, it's tough to come back from that, Keith, because I looked at the time, especially for Trey Dean and the Florida safeties in the Torrance. I was like, man, that can't be right. Like, did they slip? Like, I was like, this can't be it, man. 4.75, and you know what that does, Keith? That's going defense coordinators and everybody's gonna look at that and be like, you know what? You're a big dime backer. You're a nickel backer. You're going to be in the box. You're going to be a low hole type of guy where your range is not going. It's going to be in the short, like in that literally like 10 yards to the line of scrimmage type situation where we're not going to play you too much, deeper. And if you are in man coverage, because they do have the physical skill set and like the body types that kind of play man against tight ends, you got to be careful with that too. You don't want them trying to cover some of these really athletic tight ends that can really, explode downfield. So like the Evan Ingrams of the world and guys who are 4.4 athletes and stuff like that can really stress these guys if you put them in compromising positions, man. So Keith, I mean, again, like we've hit on a couple of different situations with not so much like disappointed, just more so like, man, like I just didn't expect that Henry To'oTo'o, at the linebacker position, man, just expected him to be a little bit,
Man, I don't think I'm coming off that hill, DP. I think that's one I'm going to just stay on by myself, man. Everybody knows I'm a Henry To'oTo'o guy. He didn't show well, didn't weigh in well, but I'm probably just going to have to die on that hill by myself.
Right. Listen, hey, brother, and that's what that's what happens, man. But no, I mean, I feel like he didn't run terrible. It's 4.62. I was just hoping for like somewhere in the upper 4.5, the 4.57, and it's just like, okay, good. But Cam Jones is the one for me that I'll end it with, Keith. Like the linebacker out of Indiana, I saw him down in Mobile, and he really impressed me, man. He moved well, dropping back in coverage. He blitzed well. He run fit well. And coming out here, Keith, and seeing 4.69, I'm like, oh, my gosh. Like, that's not good, man. 4.69, almost a 4.7 at linebacker. And some people are like, man, instincts are big, right? But the way the NFL, with all the pre-snap motion and really giving you things that will hold your eyes and which will hold your feet so you can't react, you're thinking. If you're at a 4.7, Keith, now you're already behind an 8 ball. That you don't have the recovery speed to get back in the phase or back into the plate. And those are the things that I really, really and truthfully look at, Keith. So it's tough, man. But guys, we thank y'all so much as always, man, for all the love and support. Y'all really showing us a lot of love of these. Like, this is our 3rd week on the show, so we want to say thank y'all. Straight up. It is a weekend, so we will have some more coming for y'all this coming Monday to truly recap quarterbacks, receivers, tight ends, all that good stuff. So thank you for making Locked On NFL Draft your first listen today. Like I said, we're going to look at all the offensive positions after we return from the weekend. For Keith Sanchez, you can find him on Twitter at The Talent Code. I'm Damian Parsons, DP_NFL. Find us on YouTube, subscribe, smash the bell, and get the notifications and come enjoy all the fire content. Leave a like and a comment. Go to your favorite podcast audio apps. Do the same thing. Subscribe, like, share, leave a 5-star review, comments, all that type of stuff, and just really tap in with your boys. Again, we will join you guys on Monday. Thank you so much for joining us on the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.